35, and for 2025 we had 55,185. Again, that's a plus of 25,450. I'm going to pull up our building inspector, Ike Newman, just for a second. This is contributed to this $25,000, almost twice what it was last year. What it goes to is several different things. One
several difference with the development from the Haven triplex they're doing out there.
Yep.
And then we have several other
new
we only have 5 new homes being built right now, but most of them are remodels and additions to the homes. So we're still growing, we're still developing. So very
right. As of last month, we met and exceeded our yearly budget for a year department, and that's the one for.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, that's a big point out. And again, it's a big hit of that is because of the Haven triplex going on there. So thank you, Pike. I appreciate that information. Number of permits year to date. Last year it was 61. This year it's 60. And new homes the year to date there's 7. So as I spoke, that's a big deal right through there. And my last reporting will be from the sheriff's department. So I'll let you and since I don't see Abe, I don't see Jimmy, I don't see the sheriff. I guess you're it.
I'm in for the line.
And your name is
Bryce, easily.
Oh.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Bryce. All right. Go ahead.
So the month of June was fairly busy for us. We responded to 284 calls for service and took 101 reports. Deputies conducted 126 traffic stops and 215 business checks. We also made a total of 15 arrests and 3 cases for possession of a controlled substance, which included methamphetamines, fentanyl, and psychedelic mushrooms. I'd like to give a shout out to our DWI unit, our Camden County DWI unit, Deputy Sean Lackey. He took over our DWI unit in 2024, and where he arrested 130 impaired drivers, over 130 impaired drivers last year. The month of June, he arrested 14 impaired drivers in the Lake Ozark area, and several DWI arrests, including felony DWI arrests throughout the entire county last month. One notable arrest that he had was a DWI chronic, which is a Class C felony. That means that the driver was previously charged and convicted of 5 or more DWI offenses. The driver was also charged with speeding, failing to comply with the ignition interlock device, driving while revoked, and assault for a special victim. During the investigation, the driver attempted to headbutt Deputy Lackey. He's unsuccessful, thankfully. His blood alcohol content was twice the legal limit, and he was currently on probation for DWI aggravated, which is felony probation. And as always, we'd like to thank you guys very much.
That's enough.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I certainly have seen at least plenty of patrol out here in the Four Seasons, by short you've been area, and I sure thank you guys for putting everybody out there. I've slowed down a little bit, which is a big deal.
You got that special sticker on you.
I do have that on me. So anyway, thank you, Bryce, for that report. Yeah. I do not have anything else on mine.
Do you mind talking about how we feel like paint? I know you said it last night, but they really were.
I said it last night, and I'll say it again, that we as the village, there's very few places that we can get tax dollars. We don't have a whole lot of different places. We have the lodge, we have some LaFadas, and where I say LaFadas, geez. That's
Four Seasons can be.
Yeah, I'm way throwing my age out there. And thank goodness we have angels out here, which we did have last week, or last month early. We had the ribbon cutting for that. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you everybody for being there. It was a great place, and my gosh, was that place busy? Gee whiz. So we certainly expect some sales tax from them, which is all great. But again, this sales tax that we do have is to support some of it is used to support the sheriff's department out here. You know, the last year, the POA. Decided, you know, that they weren't gonna help support the PO or support the sheriff's department. For other reasons that they had, and so we had to step up and carry that on, and so we appreciate you guys being here, you know, it's a great, yeah, and we supply the office downstairs also, so. So, thank you guys for being out here, thank you,
Thank you, we appreciate everything.
thank you, yeah, thank you for the vision of seeing you guys out there. So,
Any questions for Dave? Okay, Ron?
The gardens they're all growing, looking pretty good, so really nothing else to report on those, so, that's really nothing else.
Got any questions for Ron? Thank you, Luann.
If you want to fill out your financial information. The ARPA one is very, very easy. We didn't spend our money yet from this year. That's already been funded. We have $31,000 in the account right now, and with consulting with the person that makes sure that we are adhering to all the rules and regulations of ARPA. There are 2 more payments to be made between now and the end of the program, and that would be $1,575. We'll discuss later the pedestrian trail handrails. We've allocated 10,000 or budgeted 10,000 to that, and then Trillium Park soft ground project 20,159, and that will use all of the money in ARPA, and it has to be spent by the end of the year. Okay, budget versus after. Okay, most of our income is up compared to the budget. Year to date, the greatest increase is in the building permit side. Sales tax is still below budget, but hopefully this will improve, and I'm going to talk about that more so, and when we start talking about the year-over-year comparisons. So right now, in all 3 funds, we have received almost $9,000 more than what we budgeted. Okay, sales tax is down, all the other categories are up. Okay, and expenses, every fund is below budget. Okay, which is good because we're not spending our money. And so it gives us a net income. This is budget only of $69,995.09. Now, this is where it might be a little confusing to people when we look at our statement of financial income and expenses. This compares the year 2024 to 2025. And our income is up in every fund year to date. For the first time, sales tax reporting is showing us only down by like $700, where for the most of the year, we have been down tremendously. Okay. I emailed each of you guys earlier this year, and this is the concept that you guys we all have to understand. Sales tax for January is deposited in February. Okay, where we have a big issue is sales tax in December of one year does not get reported until January of the next year. This year, in January, we received $7,000 less than we did January of the previous year. So that put us in a deficit of 7,000 to start off with. Okay, but then we received like 17,000, but it was 7,000, or we received 17,000 year before. We only did 10,000 in December, carried over to this year. So that's where the $7,000 deficit comes from. I did a comparison and email to each one of you. I'm keeping a chart. I've started it from 1924, from 2023, 24, and 25. If you look at that chart, we technically are $3,500 better this year than we were last year. Okay, remember this one I emailed everybody? I am going to track that every month when the sales tax revenue comes in, because that is comparing January 23 to January 24 to January 25, and I'll do it again January 26. It's not what we receive in the bank, it's what the state reports as sales tax. Okay, so based on that comparison, we're $3,500 ahead of where we were last year. Okay. When we look at our expenses, general and street funds and expenses are lower than last year, which is always good. Our capital fund is much higher than the previous year, and this is because we have started our pavilion. We did basketball court resurfacing and the boundaries of the pickleball court, and then we put an area for accessing the pickleball court parking area out here. Capital is in very good shape because most of our big capital expenses for the last, I guess, 3 years has been through ARPA funding. Things like our sirens, the traffic light, several different things that we would have normally spent capital funds for, were spent by ARPA funds. Okay, so even though it's showing us a negative right now, 52,187.59, it's because of the capital paying for the projects that we are completing this year, which is the pavilion and pickleball court. Anybody have questions? Everybody okay?
Sounds great.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much. We'll move on to questions to Luann and Renita.
The only thing I have is emergency management. The last 2 times they had the testing for the storm sirens is, I wasn't here on June, but July I was. And they had the sound, had actually 2 different kind of sounds, but they didn't have any voice saying this is a test. So I know Osage Beach always had that, and that's why we hooked up with Osage Beach, one of the reasons why. So I'm going to check with Osage Beach to find out what the scoop is. Danielle did tell me that, I guess the prior month in June, when it happened, that we are on like the Bagnell Dams storm siren testing time. Lake Ozark does not have voice capability, so I'm gonna find out from Osage Beach what the scoop is. I don't know if maybe it's a zip code deal because we have the same zip code, but I'm hoping that it's just they can change the frequency so we're separate, so we get that voice capability in that. So that's gonna be one of my key things to find out what's the story on that.
We do
But also-
chimes first and then.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, but also we need to check because the chimes first and then the siren is supposed to be for the dam.
Okay,
And so we need to check
Yeah,
because if
because
that's the
that's what
case, we're not
people-
actually on the testing cycle for just the sirens.
Because I drove by the new one at the lodge one day, it literally was right next to it, and it started chiming, I'm like, what the,
yeah,
what was that?
people in my subdivision were the ones that told me that the chimes first.
Yeah. And
The
the
chimes first
first time
before
that happened, there was a notice sent out by Ameren saying that they were testing for the river side of the dam. And so we're not 100% sure why ours went off with that. So that's what I was talking about, but yeah.
So I'm gonna check into that and find out.
What Rick, can you just briefly explain what we did with the sirens? You know,
What's your
what we put the upgraded sirens with all that.
Well, we upgraded to the village bought new sirens years ago, with I think ARPA funds. And it was so that they got it so that we had voice capability also on our sirens. Because we wanted to be able to provide that service. We used to be with Camden County, Camdenton, they don't have voice capabilities in their, activation of their sirens. Osage Beach does, so we decided for 2 reasons to move to Osage Beach to do a, memorandum of understanding, thank you, with them, that they would, when they set theirs off for testing and also for storms, ours would activate too, because number one, we're closer to Osage Beach, so our weather alerts will be more real than Camden, because all kinds are just totally different, their weather. And also, because they have voice capabilities, Osage Beach does. The other thing is for voice capabilities, Paul, who is our Village of Four Seasons Emergency Management Coordinator. We'd like the voice capability too, because there's a possibility of doing a public broadcasting. So if there's something happening on the band, there's a fire, a brush fire, out of control brush fire. The road district's roads closed for some reason majorly, we'll be able to then hopefully broadcast that on our siren so people will know, be alerted of whatever needs they need to be alerted of to help residents.
Good, so then all that upgraded. Anything else? Any questions for Renita? Thank you, Renita. We're moving on to unfinished business. We got a few things there. The first one is the pavilion update. I think most people know we're building a new pavilion out front of the building here that we opened to the public. Danielle, you wanna mention?
We have the RFP out for the build itself. I haven't received anything back yet. We did send it to one person and they haven't got it back to us yet. We're supposed to open those on the 16th at a special meeting. 5:30. Everything else is done except for we're waiting for the, them to fill where the sidewalk is, because it keeps washing out. Are they gonna, what are they gonna fill there, in the sidewalk in the, for the wall, you know?
Kevin with the road district should be here, next week, so they finish up with alabaster. He said, you're gonna move over here to the area and put the bigger rock between the road and the sidewalks to slow the water down. It comes down off the road across that sidewalk. Cooper Siteworks is working on getting us the bigger brown rock like we have out here. And he's gonna put it on the back slope of it, and then on the smaller slope, he's already put a swale so water goes around the wall and comes down to the bottom here. He's gonna use the same creek rock we have around our property now to go around the wall and in there. So he's looking to get a bigger rock on top, smaller rock at the bottom.
Okay, it'll be the brown on the.
It'll be brown matching the reservoir.
Thanks, Danielle.
Yep.
Pickleball court, we got that up and running. It's out the back here. We basically took a piece of concrete that was not painted and painted basketball and added a pickleball court in the middle with a movable net. Someone wants to play basketball, we can slide it down. We're very fortunate to have a professional pickleball court in the audience. So I'm waiting for some feedback.
Needs complete approval.
Okay. Pedestrian trail, handrails update.
We are able to find anybody.
They had not find anybody who's can do it under our budget, so we probably most likely have to send out to RFPs to put out the bid to see if we can get somebody to do it. We had one gentleman who said he could do it for our budget price, and then he never showed up to pick up the price of the invoice, so.
Because that is a safety issue, I'm going to ask council. Is. Because of it being a safety issue, is it possible that we can do that without a bid, since we already, but I think what, because the handrails may be less expensive than what we originally thought they were gonna be or close to. But it's just the actual installation of it, the way that the road district wants it installed.
It generally falls into the category of emergency.
Okay.
As opposed to the safety.
Okay. Okay,
And I think we talked about making both of these, this and also the asphalt trail, high priority. We asked for this as well as the asphalt RFP thing. We need to, we're gonna resurface that, right? That will be.
the one down here,
Yes.
that's okay, and then, yeah, and then the only other things we're gonna do, fill in the road are the cracks, what we fill it with, if it's tar as opposed to asphalt or whatever the chemical is, or the.
I had that with him, and he's supposed to be putting different sections together on this, some of it needs to be totally asphalted, yes. But
And is that cover the filling of cracks, the one down? Where
Well,
the
that's what we're talking about.
Oh, okay.
This is on off of Cherokee Branch.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
yes, done.
Cause I know I dropped down there several years ago, I was kind of rushed down that way. Sure.
We're getting kind of pushed to get this for various reasons, so it's kind of falling to they can fall into some kind of emergency category. To get all the trails where they need to be up to par, that's cracks filling in, resurfacing, handrails, all of the above. I don't know if that's something you could look at, so yes, those would fall in as an emergency or not, because there's some liability, right? New business, we have a few there. There's one here, fee for combining lots. Who wants to drive that?
We're going to go in park.
I'm sorry. I missed Drilling Park.
Yeah.
All right, any update on Drilling Park?
I've been meeting with Cooper Siteworks. today or tomorrow to go in and start marking trees that are the dead ones and all the stuff that needs to be pulled out of there. We're gonna do that in 2 separate phases. We're gonna pull the trees out and pull the ship out of there. The ship is in disrepair. It's not gonna make it.
The skip is on.
Yeah, I'm gonna take all the slides off and the plastic stuff and use them as backup as these here, right, we'll just take them out of our garage. And keep them in use, and then later down the line, we'll put the soft surface in that we have in the garage. Down there as another item to get done. We remove the mulch and stuff. We're gonna break it up in the stages. It's apart.
Perfect. Okay, now moving to new business, fee for combining lots, Mike, is that you or?
Yeah, I can head that up. So the fee for combining the lots is the POA charges homeowners a certain dollar amount to, when they want to combine the lots, to save on their assessments. Okay? So we've been getting these plats in and having the trustees sign it and stuff, and I look at each plat first before I have someone sign it, and I'm noticing that they're combining a bunch of flat lots to regular homes. That just because they don't want to have neighbors. So I understand you didn't want a neighbor, but then you take away a house that could have been built there. And then we lose, the building department loses the funds of the $1,700 of the building permit that could be built a house there on that lot. Now, what happens is once you combine your lot with the POA will never let you uncombine them. So the lot is what it is. So I talked to Lake Ozark and Osage Beach building departments, and they charge a fee to do the same thing. Okay, so they charge between $100 and $150 to do this. But then they will let the homeowner, if they decide not to build a garage on that lot or not put a pool, they can undivide that lot and sell that lot back and sell it to somebody else and get their money back. We don't have that luxury. Once you do it, the POA will never let you do it. So we lose that money. So we put a price of the POA used to do it for $500 a lot. And then so if you did 2 lots, it was $500. If you did 3 lots, it was $1,000. A lot of the residents got upset over that because they were paying that money plus their assessments. So they backed the price down to $300 for the 1 or 2 lots, and you got to save on half of your assessment of that lot. So we're looking to recoup some of that money of the loss of the building permit to, if the homeowner is going to combine these lots, that we collect money on that same as we sign the plats.
Is there a recommendation on the fee that we would think of?
So the recommendation was, as POA told me, we should start with the $500, a lot like what they did.
So,
I don't have a problem with that.
No, I think Ike and I have had good discussion on this and it just seems kind of silly that you can't divide them, but put them back together and everything else. Again, it's a POA thing, and I'm not jumping on the POA. I'm just saying it just seems a little odd that the POA has designated some of these things and we can't do it. And again, we as the village are losing out on being able to do that.
And I think it was, like you said, it was to save the assessment, so they do it 1 year and then they wanted to undivide it the next year. And then they need to go back to the 2 full assessments, the house assessment and the unimproved lot assessment. If they don't do that, they make them stay.
so, do y'all want to talk about this more? It's on the agenda, someone wants to make a motion?
Well, I got a question is, why do we wanna start at 500 versus 300 to match with the POA? Why do we bring the big
When they started out, they were 500.
and they had to drop down, so why can't we just start at 300?
Doc?
But the POA decided to drop theirs from 5 to 3.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna get recurring amount of the assessment every year. We will not, it'd be a one-time fee for us.
Yes, Renita on mine, say I've got 3 lots combined, I bought the corner lot, combined the 2, that was 500. And I bought the one right behind me, did it later, but did it again. So I pay a developed lot assessment for my home, and then I pay half of that other lot.
Right.
I would caution the village though, on assuming there's gonna be a house potential built on every lot. Some of these lots are not built.
Well, he was saying he's noticing a lot of the flat lots were being joined with.
But-
Right.
Where do you draw the line? Yeah, where do you draw the
Oh,
line?
I
I
see.
mean,
Yeah.
like, my neighborhood, there's probably half of the homeowners in that neighborhood that have bought multiple lots and combined them.
Well, it should be something that we could, I don't know, write up that would say there's a fee if it's a buildable lot, then there'd be a fee to charge. Well,
I've built a lot of houses on what I considered 20 years ago as a non-buildable lot. I mean, it's like an inverted cliff, and we're figuring those houses.
Everything on the shoreline.
But I know what you're saying.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, who's gonna be the judge of that?
Yeah, true.
I hope they're falling down the way.
No, they haven't. I know.
All right, so, does anybody want to make a motion with anything? Do you want more discussion? Do you want to put on another agenda, or are we ready to do something, or what do you want to do? I'm gonna stop just for a second before you answer and reach out to our attorney.
On a legal basis, where you have to do what you're intending to do. Half these people in here are here to discuss potential commercial development on the AB property. If you permit and enhance the ability to have larger estates or larger footprints, you might have bigger homes. Get rid of those lots that are being built on the second, third levels. And that may be a benefit to you as well. That's all I'm going to have.
Hey, now that I'm asking you, do y'all want to table this for the next meeting, or are y'all ready to move on this, or what?
I'm not ready to move on. I think I'm ready to, there is good discussion on it. I hate for the village to be losing some money on this, but this is it's a pretty heavy topic, and I think we're kind of putting our fingers in some places that maybe
Okay,
we don't need to.
well, let's move on, and we can address that at another time, at least we know what that topic is about. Okay, now we're coming to the item that I think most people in this room is up here for, and that's the P and Z. Public hearing from last night, and basically what this board's gonna do. Before I move for a motion or anything like that, I am just gonna talk a little bit, and then I'm gonna open it up to Curtis, do one more time, talk about what they're doing, and then we'll open up the floor and see if there's any more discussion, and then based on that discussion from Curtis and from the floor and from the P and Z, you guys should have enough information to feel how you want to move forward on this. So I think it's fair that we at least have that conversation before we get the type of motion. So, Curtis, if you mind, come on.
Sure. My name is Curtis Ozy with Lakeside Constructors. We built the Havens down the road, so it just gives you an idea of what we've done before. Anyway, whenever the Anheuser-Busch property came up for sale a little over about, I guess, a year and a half ago, we jumped on the opportunity to get that piece of property. Originally, we thought, because we built condos, we thought we wanted to build condos there, and then we quickly decided that that wasn't the right use for that property, that none of the neighbors would like us if we built condos, and we don't want to be that guy. So anyway, because we're in the condo building business primarily, we found a buyer for the property, who's gonna turn it into a nice, R1, single family subdivision. The intention is for it to be, a luxury estate. It's gonna be gated. It's gonna get a new grand entrance right off of HH. What we're asking for is, there's 4 parcels of property. 2 of them are already zoned R1 with a special use permit to be able to use it for, what is it? Corporate retreat. Corporate retreat. Okay, so that's why the property already has a really large metal building that normally wouldn't be allowed. But it is a really nice looking metal building. So anyway, what we're looking to do though is take a portion of the property that we acquired after we bought the first section, we bought some more that's unzoned, it's basically designated as green space, so it would be getting its initial zoning. And while we're doing this, we're basically putting it together as a comprehensive plan, so we're gonna rezone almost all of the property to R1, and we're requesting a special use permit to be able to build nice luxury townhomes, just two connected, not more than two. The reason for that is because that's a product that's very much in demand here at the lake, so that's why we're requesting that. The reason we're also requesting to do it as R1 with a special use permit is because if we requested R2 that would allow us to do that, that would also allow condominiums and a lot higher density stuff that the neighbors may not want, so we felt like that was the best approach there. And then the other component to that is that there would be two commercial lots right up against HH on the right and left side of the entrance.
So. I know there's some of us weren't here last night, so the board would like to ask any questions to Curtis about any of this, or. Any of the ones that weren't here, or.
I wasn't here. Okay.
And just to clarify too, what we're asking for, I mean, I told you a lot about the development that is planned. But really all we're asking for at this meeting is the zoning, because if we don't get the zoning taken care of, then. You know, the rest of it's a moot point, so I don't have a lot of details about the. Very specifics of the plan, other than I think that you have a plat, did they get a copy of it?
Yes.
So that is an idea for what the plat might look like in the future. But it's not tied to the zoning request. The zoning and that plat are two separate things, because it's still being refined and tuned and lines being moved and whatnot, but that's the general idea of what we're, planning to try and do with it. So, with that being said, any questions?
Yes, I'm gonna ask
Yeah.
you. And I'm gonna let you know where I come from.
Mhm.
Okay. The estates right over here
Mhm.
is mine and my husband's development.
Okay.
Okay. We started off doing single family homes,
Mhm.
okay, then. We decided when the condos started being built across from us on the other side.
Mhm.
We were one of the first products, I guess, that we did villas,
Yeah.
okay, a duplex,
Yeah.
town, villa, whatever. We were forced and had to cease and desist, correct, Dave? Because we were zoned R1 for the whole development. And so we came in and did what you did.
Yeah.
And, we wanna be R2 and this is what we want and whatever. Love the concept,
Yeah.
but my question is, since R2, and I know what you wanna do, but since R2 is an established zoning.
Mhm.
Why isn't this R2 like we had to do? Number one, and number two, when you write your covenants,
Mhm.
restrictive covenants,
Mhm.
can the restrictive covenants eliminate the possibility of doing rentals? Because I know Charleston used to have them, that's a condo complex, and they got tired of it and said, we are not gonna rent anymore, so they changed their covenants. Water's Edge, my understanding is they're only, 20% of theirs that are allowed to be rented, their condos.
Mhm.
And there's a waiting list, so when one sells, then, people get onto that waiting list. So my question is.
It doesn't carry on to the next buyer.
To the next buyer, it's a waiting
Start
list.
back, it's a waiting.
Okay, and I think, do they have to pay more too in assessments to do rentals? I'm not sure.
300 silly dollars, yes.
So, I mean, that's just the clarification that I need is why
Yeah.
don't we use R2 and have your covenants cover it? Rather than putting a special use, because to me, it's a special non-use, for the adults. That's.
So the logic behind that is, and to be clear, so I'm the developer that bought all of the property and I pieced all of this stuff together, but. Because I could do a subdivision, but that's not what I want to build at the lake.
Yeah.
So we found somebody else who wants to build that, so the reason that we chose to approach it the way we did is because we felt like it would give. The neighbors the greatest comfort to know that there aren't gonna be condominiums there, which we know that they would like, and so if we zone it R2. Once I sell it to whoever, they can build condominiums, once it's zoned that way, yes, so. And then to get to the Airbnb part, which is, another good question, so the reason that we did it that way is, regardless, the covenants would not allow Airbnbs, once they're drafted, they wouldn't be allowed anyway, because a subdivision this nice, you just wouldn't allow that, but because we're doing it R1 with a special use permit, there's 2 levels of that can happen, that would happen at the Village of Four Seasons level, so even if they would change their covenants later, the Village of Four Seasons would still be able to say, you know what, not here. So.
So, and again, I looked through all that last night again, and again, maybe my 1.25 readers wasn't deep enough into really seeing all of it. But when the request is for the R1, with the special use, is that covering, is that taking on the whole peninsula, the 37 acres? Or is that taking on the special use, quote, unquote, special use? Because right now it's R1.
Correct.
The bush property is all
Yeah.
R1, and then there's the new piece that has been incorporated
Yep.
into that. Okay, so there's the 2 parcels. So is the request again is that all of it turns into R1? Some of it already is R1.
Yeah.
Some of it's not zoned at all.
Yes,
Is what it is.
Escape.
And so what the special usage covers takes on the old bush
Yeah.
property also.
The intent would be that all of the part that is zoned R1 would be the R1 with the special use permit, so all of the lots are the same, so that whenever those lots are being sold, it's not confusing of what you can do on this lot or that lot. I can't imagine any of the lakefront lots are gonna get, I don't know, they might get townhomes, but it's unlikely at the price point that these are gonna be, I expect them to be $3 to $7 million homes is what I expect to be on the lakefront lots, just based on their target price of what they're hoping to get for them. So, I can't say that no, it absolutely wouldn't happen, but I think it's unlikely. The reason we're doing it that way is just for consistency, to make it less complicated whenever we're transacting the lots later.
First, we'll change, and then subsequently come back and let your special use permit, we need to decide where you want to do this higher density use.
Let's say that again.
Why would you do all in one now? And as you sell your lakefront, those are obviously going to stay on one, more than likely.
Yeah.
Just describe.
Yeah.
Why would you come back subsequently and ask for a special use permit once you decide where you're going to develop these townhomes or higher density uses?
I think just for the ease of transacting with buyers, so if it's all, whenever I'm out doing my sales pitch to whoever's gonna buy these lots, it's one less roadblock to getting that sale done, if I can tell them, here's the things that we can do, so we could certainly, do it that way, but it would be a roadblock and it would make it harder to transact, because if somebody wants to do townhomes, then, we've got at least a month or more than a month's worth of waiting to find out if we can get there.
So what is the special use permit? What does it say?
Generally, a special use permit, it's just used for all different, anytime you have zoning, you have special use permits for all kinds of things, like, for example. Zoning that's a little bit more developed than the zoning code that you guys use here, you might have commercial 1, commercial 2, commercial 3, commercial 4. And a good example that I like to use, because there isn't anywhere that would allow this without a special use permit, no matter what version of commercial you have, is storage units. And, and things that people generally feel are unsightly and don't want in neighborhoods, it doesn't matter where you wanna build it. I've never seen a municipality that would let you build storage units without a special use permit. So that special use permit is saying, all of the rules for R1 apply to this property, and we're granting this additional use, this special use permit for that.
Yeah, I pulled up the zoning on R1. And it says R1, it says permitted uses and under special use permit. It does have an item here, it just says multifamily use for meeting the requirements of the R2 district, which basically the R2 district refers you back to R1 district. No short-term rentals and other things like that. But that's what on R1, the special use allows for these family things that are special use as opposed to doing.
But it won't give them access to anything else then. Like somebody decides they wanna build a triplex. Is there anything that says can't build a three
No, I
family?
just, yeah, multifamily. R2, permitted uses. Under R2 says, two-family dwellings. It does say multiple family dwellings, apartments and group houses. Is included in permitted uses.
But can't the special use permit be restricted to exactly 2 versus 3?
Yeah, I believe in our application, we were very specific, so for that reason.
Yeah, the application
Yeah,
spelled
it's-
out duplex
No, sorry.
townhomes.
Do you want me to go get it so you can see it? It's on my desk, it's really easy to grab.
Okay, any more discussion for the board with Curtis before we?
Well, I'm gonna, like, if everybody has found the audience, I can say it.
I have a question. My name is David Cobb. I'm an owner in,
Did you sign up that you might?
I had a Curtis actually. Yeah, sorry. I'm David Cotman. I am a owner in Treetop Village. My concern is if you build these houses on the lake, are you gonna have a mass dock per se coming out where your dock is now, or will each home have an individual dock in front of it?
So. I can't say specifically what will happen, I can tell you what the tentative plan is, but. I mean, plans could change, but the tentative plan is that the existing dock that's there will stay right where it's at. There will be a larger dock, but it'll be off the front of that first peninsula out towards the main channel. Because to get the number of docks they need, so one of the things that they're planning on doing is all the second tier lots will have access to the lake and they'll have access to a dock slip. But to get the dock the size that they need, it has to go out into the main channel, it can't go into the treetop cove because it's not wide enough. You can only go out, you know, 30%.
About that, because we're in the process of buying a new dock and they are limiting, we had to cut back 4, we were gonna have 10 well, and now I think we're 6.5 or 6, 7 well.
Yeah, we use Atlas docks and I think for that commercial dock, which is what that would be, it should meet the specs, they're pretty much, I mean.
Well, it depends on where it ends up in the code.
This is going main channel, we'll have to be in the channel, we docks.
So they, so Ameren will control that, how many
Yeah,
docks, because we were shocked, because the other one we have is a 16 well, I think, and the one right in front of it, which is wider, they won't allow us to do that.
something else worth mentioning too, just for the neighbors that maybe weren't here last night is. There is an existing entrance to the property where you have to go through Treetop Village to get there. There's an easement and a gate to access Regency Cove Drive. The intent for this development is to leave those as closed and gated, and that the only entrance will be the new entrance out to HH that the owners will use. Those gates will stay there, probably replaced with, you know, something a little nicer looking, but they'll be for emergency vehicles only, so we'll have a knock box and then the fire department, EMS will be able to use them. But, you know, the regular owners that live in there, they will not.
Okay. Any other questions okay, I will go back to the group here, the audience, is anybody who'd like to address the board, if you'd like to share any comments?
I would,
Okay,
now the time going.
yes, sir.
Okay, thanks. I'm Jeff Meyer. I live at 289 Regency Cove Drive. First of all, thank you to the work that you guys do as a board. You guys are volunteers and there's normally not a long line to sign up for the jobs, so thank you for that. And the men with all those stripes on there, looks like you just graduated high school. I don't know if you got the stripes. That was really good. You're impressive, so thanks for being here. So I just want to pass along some things to make sure they get caught on record. Reflecting what I believe are the thoughts and views of the people who live on Regency Cove Drive. Certainly have treetop condominiums and they are going to be impacted as well. But also Regency Cove will be impacted, and I know Tony here is probably going to be impacted the most because he's the only one, I believe, whose lot will actually be bought up and be adjacent to the new development. But I've got kind of a list here I'm gonna go through fairly quickly. Stop me if you want to ask questions further about them, okay? So we hear a lot from successful developers and or salespeople or engineers about projects that they've completed. That's encouraging. I think that's good for us to know that, okay? But it's my understanding that there's going to be a sale transaction that moves the ownership from where it was to somebody else. I don't know anything about the somebody else. Okay, so that's kind of a question. It also poses the question, what was the prior owner going to do with that property? I don't know if anybody knows that. They planning to build 50 homes. Person who got ill and is now selling the property. I think that's an interesting question. When I think about, we talk a little bit about covenants and local laws and things like that. We talk about them like we know what they're gonna be. But we don't know what they're gonna be. We talk about special use permit, holy cow. To me, that's huge risk. I think we have no definition of what that means. Special use permit, other than what it could be, but we don't know what the developer is gonna do. I've heard some very nice things from what I think he wants to do. But he doesn't own it all, right? He's selling. And somebody else is gonna make some of those decisions. So we really don't know all the answers, okay? We don't know if some of those homes are gonna have storage sheds in the back. For somebody who builds a home of this size with these kind of prices for lots, I don't think they're typically storage shed builders, but I don't know. Okay, this is just an unknown, all right? Lighting. Both the homes that are being built and then this potential for commercial properties. We don't know if somebody's gonna have 25-foot poles with lights on them that point towards Regency Cove, what their wattage is. These are things we just don't know. Again, covenants, restrictions, I might say, hey, you can't do that. I appreciate all that as we talk about it now. But I don't think there's legal terms that protect us for the things that we talk about. Okay? The connection to the Regency Cove. It was good to hear him talk about how it's gonna be, emergency use only, so that's helpful. Drainage is a huge concern. We talked about that a little bit last night, and I appreciate what I heard from the engineer. We know what water does here at the lake, okay? When it rains hard, it's flowing, and, we have ditches. And we have ways for water to move around Regency Cove today. And it's not perfect, but it tends to work pretty good. When you're gonna add 50 homes, where does that water go? What are they gonna do to the slopes, and how is that gonna be managed? So that's certainly a big concern, and I did hear some things that address that, and that's encouraging, but we don't know, okay? What if the cash flow of the developer dries up? There's a condo project directly across from us. It took an awful long time to get completed, and it's beautiful today, that large white condo building. It's fantastic, but it sat there for a lot of years, getting rained on. And obviously, we don't want to see that, or a project like that develop where we live. We don't know if condos are gonna be built, we don't know if they're gonna be duplexes, or townhomes, or triplexes. Because we haven't defined what the special use permit really allows. So these are things that before approvals are given, I think a lot more attention needs to be given to understanding how we can tighten up this. Basically, the rules and the provisions that apply to this permit. We talked about performance bond a little bit. Is there a performance bond for this developer that protects the neighborhood? So that, again, the things that are agreed to actually happen. Now, I don't know what happens through bankruptcy or something like that through a performance bond, but it does create some amount of assurances. Yeah, can the zoning changes be conditional? You guys have done this before, I have not, I have zero experience in dealing with zoning. But can they be conditional? So it's, these zones are approved, this zoning change is approved with these conditions. Okay, something to think about. We talk about. There's apparently a large demand for townhomes. What's the marketing study behind that? Do we have a real estate expert among us that can tell us that that's fact? I don't know if that's fact. Maybe there is fact to that, but as a board, do we know? Because that's what we're talking about potentially building are these multi-use or multi-prop, well, I'll just call them townhomes And we don't really know that there's that much of a demand, for it, okay? We say that, but I don't know whether we have the expertise to say that that's accurate. So that's a list of many concerns. So for a project of this magnitude, this has got to be one of the largest projects for the Village of Four Seasons in many, many years. I've only been here since 2011, so I don't know a lot of the history. But for something this significant, that's gonna have a lot of impact to resources. Okay, there are resources involved, there are resources of fire, police, water. Has that all been vetted? What do those people have to say about this? Is it a no-brainer? We got the capacity. I don't know about you guys, but we got notices. We've been getting a lot of notices from the water department about capacity, about failure. What are the conditions of the existing system such that it can handle 50 new homes? Okay, do we know that before we approve these zonings? Is this something that should be put out more publicly for publicity's sake? So that actually the people that live in the Village of Four Seasons know about this to the extent that this small group does. Okay, there's a lot of people that are gonna be affected by this resource change, but they don't know what's being voted on today, so. Does it make sense to put this out for a larger vote? For the actual people, and I don't know process, okay, but it seemed to me that it would be valuable. To have. A little bit more input from other people that live here, other than just Regency Cove and Treehouse. So I think about it that way. And then lastly, we keep hearing information about wanting more revenue. I think we're trying to solve the problem in ways that don't consider what the problem is. You can't solve the problem before you know what it is. To me, it sounds like there aren't good avenues, there aren't good valleys, pathways for the money to come to the Village of Four Seasons. Is that a bigger issue that we can take on? Whether it's with Camden County, is it with the state, who is it with? Because clearly we consume resources, but we're not being compensated in a way that seems fair to me. If you think about real estate taxes go to schools and they go to all these other places. But they don't come back to the Village of Four Seasons. I don't understand. Is there a way to craft? A reapportionment of funds. That county, state, city, whatever get, so that we get. Something to think about. And so, because we're talking about a very major project. I thought it was a good time to bring up the concept related to the tax revenues and how it flows in here. And whether or not we think that. Allowing for commercial lots that we have no idea what they're gonna entail. There are no design plans, there are no concepts other than just thoughts. But we think that there's benefit in those commercial lots associated with this development because of the tax revenue. But we don't really know that. We don't know what they're gonna be. We don't know what the tax revenue is gonna be. We're not experts there. So. Those are my thoughts. Thank you for my time.
Yeah, thank you for asking some good questions and I appreciate your involvement. We always look forward to people participating with us and sharing things with us and being part of what we're doing. So thanks for your time.
I mean, can I even speak to a couple of items there? Regarding notifying the public, our ordinance requires that it was advertised in the paper.
You read the newspaper?
No, I'm just specifying what the ordinance requires, that it requires public notice in the paper. It requires notice of owners within so many feet of the property. It also requires a sign on the property, and all of those things were done. I mean, as far as sales tax or tax revenues, the village, and I'm not sure how many times we've tried this and it got voted down. But a wayfare tax and sales tax for online purchases, and the residents have voted it down multiple times, so.
I don't mean to interrupt, there's enough money coming in to the people that live here. Okay, everybody's paying their fair share, it's how it's apportioned. Real estate taxes are higher than they should be, the amount of money that goes to schools is more than it should be. Okay, based on the people that have children here and live here, so there's plenty of money, it's how it moves around to those that consume it.
Okay, anybody else wants to?
May I make one more comment?
Sure.
So, the comment that I wanna make is I just wanna make sure everybody here understands that whenever I shared the proposed development, the reason that I did that is because I'd like to give everybody a good idea of what it is that we wanna do with the property, because I think that's fair. I think that's the fair thing to do. But I wanna make sure that everybody also understands that what we're here to decide and to talk about tonight is not tied to the development, it's tied to the zoning. It's the village's responsibility to take a look at what we've requested and say, does this look like an appropriate use of this land? When we look at the land that surrounds it, when we look at the other property up and down HH, does this look like it is appropriate and it fits with what we already have going on? That's the only thing that should be getting considered tonight. I hope that's what you're considering. Because the rest of the development, that really should happen through the permitting process, and that's where some of the things that you're worried about, that's where those things get hammered out. And just to talk about a few things, although not relevant to tonight's conversation. Rest assured, we're talking to the water and sewer district, we're making sure that they have a plan. We're making sure that we kick in what we need to kick in and we do what we need to do to make sure that that's gonna work. You know, we're talking to the neighbors, we're putting, I mean, like you said, this is a really big deal, so. We're dotting all the i's and crossing all the t's. There's no way that we would put the kind of money it's gonna take into doing this unless we were absolutely sure that it's gonna work, because at the end of the day, if it doesn't work, you know, you're gonna have some land next to you with a new road. But it won't be like the tower across the lake, you know, you'll have some land with a new road and we lost a bunch of money if things don't work. That's really what you're looking at there. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure that, you know, we're not tying the development to the zoning because it's two separate things. So that's all I have.
Would anybody else like to address the board? I'm now gonna ask. Carol, if you can just summarize very quickly what the planning zone voted on last night and what the results were.
Basically, what we had last night with a lot of the same questions as far as the development process, and not specific zoning that was being requested. There was some apprehension on the commercial. I think one commissioner voted against the request because of commercial, wanted to keep the appearance of as you're driving around the parkway, that nice natural look and everything. I know Curtis made a comment that the potential buyer really doesn't necessarily want to develop the commercial. That was kind of a put in there to try to help the village, you know, with sales tax, you know, potentially. So, but again, most of the comments weren't necessarily against the zoning request. It was more on the procedural on the development, wanting input as the project moved forward. So ultimately, the planning zoning commission voted 5-1 in favor of recommending approval of the zoning request.
Any questions for Darren?
I have another question.
Sure, absolutely.
All right,
For me, or
to you and Curtis both, okay. Could it be approved as all R1? And at some point in time, when the developer decides what they want to do, because we've got to zone the greenscape, because right now it's greenscape, so that if you make all of that R1. And then at the time the development plans are finalized, if someone, this developer decides they want to do R2. On the roadside, which, I mean, it's a great plan, I'm not condemning the plan at all, but, you know, we may end up with somebody that only wants to build houses on the, you know, mansions on the cliff overlooks the lake. But if you make this still R1, if you convert it from greenscape to R1, and if they come in with a plan at some point in time to do a development uptown, or maybe they decide they only want single family homes partway and they want duplexes the rest of the way, at that point, make it R2 if you want to, or put a special use for non-rental property on that. I mean, does that make sense at all, or?
I understand what you're saying, and I think some of us had a discussion after the meeting last night.
Yeah,
I know you want to, because it was all public notice to be presented this way on the application. I think we have to look at it as they apply. I think, and maybe Todd, I think.
And I would,
I think
and I'm sure Todd would jump
I
out
think
too. It's been,
we start trying to.
this is what they've asked for.
okay.
I don't think we can change that. I don't
I
think we
think
can
if you
change it
wanted to
without,
change it, you would have to ask them to go back and start the P and Z process.
and I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying.
I'm not either.
But that's the way it was presented, that it was set up this way. You know, R1 with special, special usage with the two commercial lots on the road. I don't think we can deviate from any of that, because that was the presentation of what they want. If we want to change that, then we would vote no, I guess, say, no, we don't like that. Then Curtis comes back in and says, okay, what do we do to fix this, and so I think it's either in as it's presented. Or we start the process, again.
And Luann, and I'm speaking just personally. I kind of racked my brain on what, because I know they want to look at commercial that would be complementary to the development. And I know, it's hard to attract people to drive out there for commercial entities. And I'm trying to figure out what kind of businesses would fit there. I personally kind of think it may be hard to find the commercial, and personally, I kind of in the back of my mind, my gut saying the new owner may ultimately be coming back to us saying, can we just do away with the commercial and make
Okay,
everything.
because the commercial is part of this presentation to our chair, okay.
And I was okay,
But again, that's just my kind of personal feeling of how it might proceed down the road is.
I'm gonna jump in here just a second, see if there's anybody else, Todd, if you want to weigh in on what we're saying, or.
No, I agree with Dave's perspective. I had to ask him first because I was curious why they just included R1 and then selectively pick their spots, but there's some efficiencies to put in with it. It's not unusual. I agree that commercial component would be difficult because we've got commercial down the street that has been developed yet, established infrastructure.
I just appreciate them trying to help the village, giving that side.
So there,
You still got high topics, you still got ingress egress off the expressway, which I think the road district has a few dedicated ingress.
well, yeah, I think the road district already, so they're coming off that main road in.
Right.
Any commercial would be off your.
Yes.
entrance, not off property, so that's.
And the roads in development would be private, they want the roads, they're private, so.
Kevin, I want to jump in, is anybody else want to address the board from the audience? If not, then I'll say, what else do y'all want to talk about, as we have some options, talk more. Make a motion, one way or the other, but we need to make a motion tonight, yea or nay tonight anyway, because it's on the agenda. I'm gonna say, do y'all have any other discussions that you would like to ask, talk about?
I love the idea. I do have the commercial lot things, I do have a little question on that, like many other people do. I thank you though for thinking of helping the village in the future possibly. So my thought was, was kind of like, can we present it, can we do it to where we can say, okay, let's say everything's okay except for those two commercial lots, just leave those parcels as include those in R1. Just take the commercial out, just leave R1 to keep in parcel in case somebody down the way wants to buy that and it's feasible. But they want to be commercial. But if it takes, but if because if they do that, then it has to go all the way back to the whole planning and zoning. Which is gonna take another 30 to 60 days, I guess, to do that, so.
Is what they propose, system for master plan.
Yeah.
Is two commercial lots, 126 acres, 36 acres, is that consistent with having that around which you can?
And also part of our strategic side of the side.
I would suggest it probably is, so, and I think that you should be comforted by the fact that they're not trying to put questions out of the back there.
yeah, that's why I like that, but like the gentleman out here said, I've been around long enough too. That you go to 2 or 3 buyers down the way and things can totally change of how things are done, but we also have ordinances. Which have watched about trees cutting down, storm drainage, so the village will have to then be sure we stay on that. Watching those, you know, to make sure we're meeting our ordinances, so we prevent that stuff, so that's the thing, but everything's like, who knows what's gonna happen in the world, and
Well, and I would also just mention that less than 1,000 yards down the road, there's 2 commercial lots. Right on the
Yes.
change.
right,
So. Whenever I designed the plan to present, I designed it in a way that I thought, this looks pretty similar to what's already next to us. And what he said is correct, if you don't vote yes tonight, then we have to start over and it's at least another month, probably
So-
longer.
So I'm gonna ask Ian, does the board have anything they would like to question, discuss?
As far as the commercial lots, don't we have, requirements on what things can look like and, said something about big lights or something like that, but we have restrictions on what commercial establishments can look like.
another facade yet,
Yeah.
that's something we need to work on, the facade.
It's heavy commercial, so
Yes,
it's
it's
not left and take it.
Now, lighting, there is already something in the ordinance that says lighting needs to be shining on their property, can't be shining on neighbors, can't be shining on the roadway. There is an ordinance on lighting that says no, that it has to be
Right.
that, but as far as the facade, there's not really anything there, because we've been residential.
Go through maybe the 7 main bar homes, drive through the 7-Eleven. I don't think that's what the commercial component of this is going to look like. That's just my gut. It's
Well, yeah.
That was where I was coming from.
And again,
I don't think anybody's going to see what the 7-Eleven and these people have to drive through that.
as Curtis had said last night, the owner of the property, the seller of the property, he said that really the buyer, the potential buyer, that's probably based upon how we decide how this vote's gonna go tonight, whether it sets them back another month, and he may say, screw these guys are too slow, or whatever, who knows, it's a thing. But again, Curtis, he doesn't have to tell us there might be a potential buyer, he owns the property, he's the one asking for us to zone it, period. He doesn't have to say anything about any potential buyer, nothing, it's not his place. He did it with hey, I just want to let you guys know. I'm dealing with all the hands, I don't want to do this, I'm out. I'd like to sell it to somebody, he's got somebody to sell it to. He's presented this to us, to the planning and zoning group. B and Z went, whatever the number was, almost unanimous. One not, but that's God bless America, that's the way we're supposed to be, we can't all be on the same page. But that's what they gave us, we've kind of gone through everything, on any of those types of questions. He's dealt his hand, he brought it to us, we cannot change this, without setting him back. And I don't feel comfortable on setting him back, I think. I see this as a yay, thank goodness this isn't condominium. Or a restaurant, or whatever out there, oh my gosh, I'm tickled pink. Would it be nice if it was a nice grassy fields as AB had intended out there? Great, it was nice for many a year, but it's not that way anymore, it's somebody else bought it.
And it's falling into the village's residential perspective, I mean, we're residential, the villages, and this kind of follows, zoning is, R1 is residential outside of 2 on Parkway. From that,
It is,
so-
and again, right, just last thing on that is the potentially new developer / buyer. He's not really, as Curtis said last night, he doesn't really give a rat's behind about these 2 commercial lots. He might get this and he might say, you know what, if somebody wants to buy these commercial lots, they're $10,000 a piece or $10 million a piece. Go for it, buy it if you want, I mean, it'll pay for the rest of his property, who knows what's happening there, okay, so. We can't say what the developer is going to do with those lots. He might say, I wanna build houses out there, I wanna put a park out there. So,
Well, I think from a developer's perspective, having been on the P and Z when the lot that the Havens is now built on. Okay, that was going to be all commercial, from the street all the way out to the bar that was going out,
yes,
okay?
Yeah.
And it got approved. Luckily, you built wonderful condominiums out there, okay?
Well, original thing fell through. The
I-
bar-
yeah, yeah. So from my perspective, having this R1, this is, I mean, and a little bit of the commercial, that doesn't bother me. Because it may sit for 50 years and never be built on.
Right.
R1 is the safest bet we have. Because it will limit,
It protects you if something happened to that developer, if you had that as R2.
and they decided, well, I'm gonna put a big nursing home in here.
And they,
Because the original plan for the Havens was a bar, restaurant, all kinds of docks. It was, no, it was a
kind of
nursing
coming
home.
up the hill.
It was a progressive nursing home, the center section, correct?
Yeah, I don't know.
And then, stores or commercial stores and stuff on the front. That was the original thing that was approved. With this being R1 and only a small percent being commercial. I have no problem with it, but I just would hope that that the development or any townhomes in the future could go to R2 at the point in time the developer comes in and has a plan.
but again, Luann, if they go to R2, I mean, and again, that's not the issue tonight, but
Right,
real quick, if they went to R2, then it comes into the rental settlement, it comes in whatever else.
No,
well, if R2, based on our ordinances,
That gets rezoned to R1,
R2,
R2.
it follows the R2 stuff.
R2 follows R1, which means R2 can't do
No,
that.
no, condominiums do not even all over the.
Yeah.
If that's an R2, you open the door for sure.
Right, but why do it now, keep it R1, just like we did our property before there ever was an R2.
Right.
Or that we knew it was R2, and then if the developer comes in and said, I wanna build townhomes that look like this and take up this space, then they can get something at that time. But the R1 keeps us safer.
Well, I think there's been a lot of good points made here, and I think David, thank you, and all you guys, really, thanks for questioning. And I think Todd and Brent made a good point, does this fit within the village? Is there history that shows this is what you would expect if you were developing property in the village? And I think that answer is a big yes, we wouldn't expect anything other than what this looks. From that perspective, so now I'm gonna say one more time, are you, any more discussion? And if not, is anyone ready to make a motion to approve the rezoning request from? I'll say Curtis, but has everything in there we talked about, commercial, R1 with special use and R1. Looks like it's all gonna be R1 except for the front two lots. And those could go to R1 one day if they never got developed. Someone wanted to do something. So is anybody ready to make a
I will make that motion to approve the permit as submitted. As P and Z also is has agreed upon, you know. And I will make that motion
Okay.
that we approve it as the permit is submitted.
We have a second,
I'll go ahead and second it.
okay, we have a second, either any more discussion? And I want to ask for a roll call. So we can be clear on, overlay or whatever, so if you would do a roll call on the motion that they made, the second by Ron.
Okay. Lou Ann Rock,
Yes,
Renita Jones? Yes. Ron White? Weiss?
Yes.
Ron White, I've changed your name now. Dave Purdue,
Yes.
Tony?
I'm almost gonna abstain because I'm a resident, I don't need to vote.
You don't need to vote.
So since I'm part of Regency Code, it's probably best that I just. go to board with it. Okay, the motion is passed. Thank you, here we go. I do want to say a couple more things. I know Jeff is my neighbor. He's brought up some very good points, but when I wrote all these down, I listened to him. We kind of got ordinances and permitting and stuff, but bottom line, we've been very good about inviting the public in when we have some types of things like this. This is big. I would expect down the road, we would, if the buyer bought it, we would have the buyer come in and do a public conversation with us. Review, the plans, give opportunity to talk about it, but really present that in a way that it's open to the public. You guys okay with that? Think that's something, okay.
Tony, real quick, I was hoping he wouldn't have left, so I wanted to answer some of his questions.
I agree, I wish he had, maybe.
I'm gonna answer some of his questions where he talked about, what if the developer falls through? We had several builders here fall through on several houses. I got with the realtors, we got them sold, we got the houses completed, they're done. So,
Well,
multifamilies, built several of them down on, Scarsdale. Those rented faster than the 3 new homes on Better Street. And those never sold, and now they're being rented for more than what the townhomes are being sold, rented for. So, I mean, I just wanna say, really professionals, I've been here 2 years, I see a lot of this stuff that happens, and I take care of it,
I feel
so.
very comfortable with this guy right back here to talk, will manage and govern everything that we need to do to make this thing a very, very nice place without any issues. I'm very confident in that. I would probably suggest down the road, once we get a buyer, once he comes in, if Jeff wants to sit down with you and go through some of these things, you can pull ordinances, how to be permitted, and just help him understand what's going on. I mean, fair transparency, right?
As for where the tax dollars go, that's not our issue.
No.
So I appreciate him bringing it up, but
It's
we're
not part of-
we're out of that.
Yeah, okay, we're gonna move on. Thanks everybody so much. Thank you guys. Now we're gonna go to Bob with Free Top. Sorry that you're. Still late. But we appreciate your patience. Thank you. And looks like you've given us a lot of information and what we'd like to do is just give you an opportunity to address the board and what they're asking us and. Your time.
Well, ladies and gentlemen of the board, and Mr. Miller, first of all, I want to recognize and thank Danielle, your clerk here, for being so prompt for all the little miscellaneous things that are needed. Instantly responding, accurate information, saying sometimes, no, dog, that's not what that is. But she's kept me straight, and I appreciate it, Dan.
Well, that's awesome. She keeps us right too.
Yeah, thank you so much. We've got a lot going on at Treetop Village. We may have some rooms. First of all, I've got 2 items to address tonight. First of all, you have in front of you the plat. I think it's a fairly simple request. You're probably aware, you can see on the plat maps that traditionally Treetop Village, which consists of 71 freestanding units, plus an office and a maintenance shed, but units for vacationers to live in, have always been a circular lot with a radius of somewhere between 28 and 56 feet, depending on the lot. So it's a very small circle with these little octagonal units set up. I'll go into a little more detail on this in a minute, but we are converting Treetop Village now from a timeshare, partial timeshare that it has been, into a full private owner village of 71 lots. What we want to do, what the board wants to do is, eliminate these circular lots and go to traditional subdivision lots, which are basically rectangular, sometimes almost square. And there's several reasons for that. First of all,
What's in the square feet on those lots?
sir,
What's in the square feet on those lots?
I don't have a number, but the ones that I've been looking at right now are about 0.22, 0.24 acres. And that's about the first 5 that we're doing. They're all going to be about that size or a little larger.
30 square feet.
10,000 square feet out.
Yeah.
That'd be 10,000 square feet, that's where I'm going with this.
Oh. Okay, thanks. Yeah, yes, I got you. First of all, this is going to increase the value for the owners that buy it here and the owners that are paying right now. It's also going to increase income to the association itself, because when the association owns about 2/3 of the timeshare assets that are there now. So of course, they're going to sell for more money when you sell them nearly a 1/4 acre of land, sometimes touching the water or whatever, versus the little circle that they're now setting on. It's also going to increase drastically the revenue for Camden County, because today common land, and most of what we have now, up to 25 acres, is common land. Mostly will be converted to private land and then be taxable with property taxes. So it's gonna be a revenue generator for the county. And basically, it's gonna reshape our community to look like a traditional community with traditional lots. I know of and have heard about, besides Treetop, 2 other areas of the lake. One of them is Tenterra, of course, people know that had these circular lots, and I heard there was some other one that I don't even know what to talk about. But I've heard there have been problems with that, and we want to avoid all of that and clean our deal up going forward. I came several weeks ago to talk to Inspector Ike about this, because I know he's got some really smart ideas, and I know he knows what's going on here. And just like I talked to him before, he was already ahead. And I wanted to just ask if I could mention what he thought about this idea.
So when Bob brought me in, I brought it before, when we talked about these circular lots, and Terry had a huge problem with it. Because all the land was still around these circular lots were owned by the association. So what happened was, it becomes public ground. Here comes 2 parking stalls, now there's 4. So two 4-cars show up on one unit, when the next guy shows up, well. I parked there for 20 years, you know, my unit, well, it's public land, you have no say in that no more. Because you don't own those 2 spots. So when Bob brought me the plat, he already had figured that out, so he started, when he cut these up, everybody gets the 2 spots for each unit. So there won't be a parking situation out there with the homeowner association. So he was already ahead of the game, but so the way they've got it laid out is it works with our ordinance. All the setbacks fit. They're on their own sewer. They have their own water, so we don't have to worry about any of that. And what his main question was, is it by going to single family home, would we be able to force them to R1? Okay. Treetop's always been a timeshare community, R2. There's several people there who still rent out their units. So by forcing them to be R1, that would stop them from, inheriting their income that they were making on their products.
So they asked tonight to make everybody R2, that we're kind of.
No, that's a whole separate subject, so I'd like to hold that for my second topic. Yeah, you're right, and that's all true, what I said, but I want to separate that.
Sure.
So my specific request tonight, on these lot lines, and you can see some of them have been plotted on here that are rectangles and they're not squares. What we propose to do is do that across the entire village. Now, in timeshare units that we will be selling, 46 of them, that's absolutely, we want that to happen, and nothing will stop that. When it comes to private owners who now own these lots, we're gonna go ahead and draw it out, as you see we've started. And then we're gonna give them the option to actually buy the common land from the association if they want to. We're not gonna force it. But realistically, they're gonna want to, because it's a good deal for them, it increases their property value, it standardizes a lot, and a bunch of other reasons, but it's okay. So my specific request tonight is, I left with over a week ago. The amendment 1, which is what you have in front of you, that we're asking you to sign and be notarized. And the way this is going to, and what that says is, it's these first 4 lots, you're approving that we rectangular lots as we're planned. And then that's going to be followed with amendment 2, 3, 4, etc. Because we'll have alpha survey, do 4, 5, 6 at a time, and as they do the next batch, we'll present you with another amendment. So I'm just looking for a general agreement that you're good with us redrawing these lot lines tonight. I'm asking you, because right now we have 3 units under contract. And we're supposed to close on 2 of them on August 1st. So,
Luann, I'm sorry to interrupt. What he's talking about is what's been in the conference room, we left them in there so they didn't get marked up.
Okay.
There is it's a section on this map.
It's at the top.
Yeah. 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, these right here is what is in there.
Yeah, it's in the.
Sorry, say it.
and you're right, at the top left corner of this, you'll see 5 to the section. That's amendment 1, and that's what we're asking you to sign tonight. So that we can move forward with the sale, and then again, we want to continue doing this till we get to the whole subdivision. And we'll continue to bring them to you and to sign off on it as we do it. So again, is my request clear? We're looking for approval to redraw the property lines as we're showing it. So that's all.
It's highly unusual, two topics come on the same agenda that so mirror one another. But why wouldn't you rezone this problem on request special use permit, so they should be some units?
Well, I mean, that's my second topic, so can I hold that until then?
So right now, you're just trying to subdivide it.
Sure.
So that, guys, that's a question. I understand what he's asking for right now. You guys clear on that? Okay, that ain't a question.
This amendment one. Is,
It's just these five lots.
is the two five lot.
And each of these, Bob, have their own ingress, egress, there's no shared driveways, there's no potential driveways.
That's correct. There are no, well, each one has two parking places. And that's by our governing documents, it's going on that way for the like, this will be great section. We are simply trying to increase the value for owners, to standardize to look like other subdivisions, because we're the only ones out here that look anything like this. To not get into the problems that Ten Terrace got into. It's gonna increase county taxes again as we get more property. You know, each one, the new lots are gonna be, if you look at it, 2, 3, and sometimes 4 times larger than the circles are, which means 2, 3, 4 times the property tax per lot that's gonna be collected by the county.
So I just gotta stop there for your second piece, just to make sure we're all okay with this. If there's any questions about what the first ask is.
Okay, I have a question. Why is this one to Camden County though? Us. Because it's in village code. Yeah,
That would be my first guess, it's because it's in the village, and county usually has been saying. Anything that's going on inside your city limits is for you to figure out, not for us.
yeah.
But I will look over to Ike and say, is that?
That is correct. The county does not get involved in our jurisdiction.
But then you have to take the plan into them.
We would take the plan to them
Because that's what I'm.
and be recorded,
Yeah.
and then their GIS guy will draw it on the map, and it will change
We
to our
approve the property
GIS.
lines, not the. We approve the property, the municipality does. It's
Yes.
already-
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Any other question on these five?
just to be clear, I, that we're talking about there, Bob, that this amendment one is upon. These 5 lots, the request also is that's changed to an R1.
That's a whole separate topic, but
Okay.
whether or whether or not it is changed, I still want to make the property square or rectangular.
The ask is that he wants us to sign the plats.
Yes.
To change it.
To sign the plats.
Okay, and again, I would parlay back over to our inspector, this meets all of the requirements for the size of the lot for an individual house, or do we even have such a?
The ordinance wise, I don't know what the ordinance is as in the lot size, because the POA's cut all the lots before. We don't have that.
Right.
So, and that was when I asked Bob if he followed up with that conversation we had, was when you do this, will this become an association thing with the POA? Because you are associated with the POA.
And last week I went and spoke with Ella Miller and I laid out everything that we're talking about tonight and more, and that I'll talk about in the second part of this. And I said, I just want all cards face up on the table, so we're not surprised by anything. Is there any piece of this that the POA needs to tell us about and give it? And she said, no.
No, because you have your own POA and you don't exactly.
Yeah,
It's like we do.
But I'm the kind of guy, I don't like surprises. In fact, you know, the next subject, some people said, well, don't go down there and poke the bear, you know, let's just, I said, no, we're gonna get it.
So,
Well, my question, Bob, is will you still be associated with the POA? Portion of the POA, will you still pay assessments to them so that you okay?
Yeah.
So will the POA now have say on the people come in to remodel these things through the ACC board?
Not to my knowledge.
I talked to Bill today because I want to understand the associated POA membership. And she said, no, that they have nothing to do with that membership, it's only for them to use the amenities of that, they have nothing, Copper set that up with Pet Treetop. They became members when Copper developed it and have gone for those amenities, and there's nothing else, that was, there's nothing else.
We're associate members, we pay our dues, we're not voting members, we all
That's
accept
what you
it.
said.
Well, I'm like you, Bob, I don't want surprises when. Something comes up on remodel.
Things could change.
so any other questions on this ask? Well, we probably should do a motion to say we're gonna approve his ask, and then we can sign his plats. we'll keep with things a little more. So, okay.
So, I'll help me understand this. Make all the people that at one time had a vested interest in a timeshare week or 2 weeks, whatever it was, they have relinquished their ownership to a centralized ownership group now. Your
Yes, and,
association.
and I'll go ahead, that's the second part.
So, whether they wanted to or not, they disposed of their asset, gave it to a centralized ownership entity, and now this centralized ownership entity is going to fraction that again. So that if there is a recycling topic, it's not being one application, it'll be numerous applications, 700%.
Well, I'm not sure how the applications would go, because I think that's probably more of your all's court, but I'm gonna talk about zoning in the next part. But again, basically what's happened, 71 units, 46 of them were formerly timeshare. A vote last August of 24, all of the owners voted to dissolve timeshare component. We came up with an owner buyback plan. So anybody who's in good standing, assessments paid through 2024, when we sell their unit, they will get a fraction of 1/51, because there are 51 weeks, times the net proceeds of the sale, so we're buying back their unit. Of course, like many old timeshares, we've got a lot of debtors, a lot of people that just disappeared, they don't know where they are. You've heard the story about Lakewood, and we're doing all of that, and so that mess is going on right now, but in the end, the association will own about, well, today owns about 2/3 of all of these 2,346 timeshare weeks in these 46 units. So in the end, we will get 2/3 of that money come back to us as common surplus, and the other 1/3 will pay off the owners who are currently in good standing. Is that answer? Yes. But again, it doesn't, whatever happens on zoning, we still want to get rid of these little circles and have conventional subdivision lines and lots.
So once you go to your second ask. What your
Okay.
second thing is, if you feel like you
Sure.
address what you need to address.
Sure. Happy to do that. Okay, so, and I've sent the board a letter on this and basic, but I'm just gonna go through some of the key points, just for the people who haven't seen any of the letter. Freedom Village has been alive for 48 years. It was incorporated in 1977. Again, I said we had 46 timeshare and 25 privately owned units, like mine, I'm in a privately owned unit. Only 5 of the units out there today are occupied by owners who live there full time. I'm one of the 5. So it's a vacation community. It's always been a vacation community, and it's again mostly been timeshare. So I mentioned that the owners voted to dissolve it. That's for sure. And now they're all going to be sold off as private. Okay, so Treetop Village has a history of short-term rentals because we are zoned R2. The key thing there is in about 2021, and you have a letter from former chairman of the board, Mr. Holcomb, where I was a pretty new guy around here. I heard rumors that, hey, in Village Four Seasons, you can't do short-term rentals. Well, again, I'm the kind of guy that I don't like to hope nobody catches me. I want the information up front. So I approached the board and we wrote a letter to them and said, this is what we want to do. I want to make sure it's legal. And I got the letter back from Mr. Holcomb that you have. And he said, yes, you're R2 and yes, it's legal. And on the phone, he told me, you know, and we can never change that because you pre-existed Village Four Seasons. And we did by 9.5 years. We were here before the village was there, of course. So again, the important point is we have a 48-year history of short-term rentals. And as an R2 unit. The other point is we don't want to change that. And the reason we don't want to change that is because we've got 13 owners there right now, out of the 25 private units that are in the rental business. And some of them have been for years. One of them, Dave, is with us today, who owns 4 units and is looking for a couple more. People have done this for decades. We don't see any reason to change it. We've done a pretty good job of policing ourselves. I don't think we have a reputation of renters going wild and causing any trouble in the village that I know of, that I've ever heard of. So that's the point of this whole conversation. You know, again, my understanding is, and if you know to know this, that we're grandfathered in anyway, but I just want to put it out on the table, to talk about it. You know, I know even more now, after the last two meetings in the last 2 days, how important tax revenue is for the village, and I fully agree with that. Because the more tax revenue we can get, the stronger, the more beautiful we're gonna be, I get it, and I like that. If the village is not already doing it, I'm working with Airbnb and talk to them, and you can collect revenue off of all these rooms, and if you're not, there's a way to do it. But if we continue to do what we're gonna do, it's going to actually increase the revenue to the village of Four Seasons if we continue to be R2 and use short-term rentals. We're just saying that changing the business model after almost a half a century now of operating as we have. We're gonna really disrupt some businesses that have existed for decades. We have to be able to tell the new owners, again, three under contract today, and they're asking, can we do this? And I'm just saying, hold on, I'm gonna get a real answer. We have to be able to tell these people something, because we can't sell it under the assumption that we're doing it today and suddenly it changes tomorrow. So that's my main points. The bottom line is my question to the board is, do you have any intention on trying to rezone us? And if so, I'd like to hear any details that you know right now. And if not, I would just like a definitive answer so I can tell our owners who are a little nervous right now that are doing this, and all of the future buyers of the 46 units who may want the opportunity to do the same. I'm just looking for a definitive answer to tell these folks.
I will tell you that Airbnb does pay the village, like in April, it was $849, in May it was $1,574, and in June it was $1,451. So we do get sales tax revenue.
Good.
But I don't know how many of your people are in Airbnb. And just to give you an idea, this is how many little bitty, like $1.25, whatever sales tax revenue comes in here. And that's that's just a part. Okay, so Airbnb does, but they're also like Mary Jane's travel service, 2 cents this month, which isn't really bad. Yeah, but it does add up. But
So that's good that you're collecting it, but the point is you're gonna collect more now, because a lot more units probably are gonna go in this direction. And we do have some very strong rules and regulations. We are pretty good at enforcing them, and we are actually even upgrading those rules and regulations. We probably place some heavy fines on people who abuse this area. Listen, I'm a private owner and I live there full time. I don't want a community full of crazy party college kids and all the stuff that goes with that. So I'm especially in tune to keeping this place under control. And most of the owners there are no young people that are gonna be partiers. It's gonna be the renters that come in, but we have strict plans to control all that, and we will control it.
I have a question. Luann, and because you're kind of separate, because you own your property before Copper came. When you have upgrades to your houses and stuff like that, do you come to the village for permitting? So will you guys be doing that? For me, like if somebody's renovating or doing walls or whatever, come to the village to get to say, okay, here, I need a permit because we're revamping this or we're adding on or what, building a wall or whatever is out there. Well, you'd be coming to the village to do those kind of things.
And the answer is, we're gonna do whatever is required, but I know personally, I bought my house in the treetop in January 17th. Thinking that I wasn't gonna have to do anything to it, I was just gonna move in, well, lo and behold, flat, rip the whole thing apart. But yes, I worked with the inspectors out here. Of course, I worked with the association, I was not on board at the time, everything has to be, we've got our own governing documents, it controls a lot of the architectural pieces of what we do. And we're right now in the process, we just found an attorney to completely rewrite our governing documents, because it's gonna get rid of the timeshare language. We even had a developer language still in there from the copies. They're 47 years old, and I don't know if anybody's ever checked them for current laws in the state. So we're redoing all of that. So trust me, we want control of this, especially the private owners like me, and there's multiples of us. We don't want this to get out.
My next item is R2. And you're saying R2 allows for nightly rentals. Now, well, when I read, and I was through the second PowerPoint, maybe I'm just understanding, but when I'm reading R2 in our ordinances, it says to go back to R1. Any use permitted in the R1 district, subject to all the restrictions specified in said R1 district. I mean, you wanna scan this real quick to see, just so we all understand, because right now my interpretation is that it doesn't matter if you're R1 or R2, you can't have nightly rental. Short-term rental, according to the way I'm reading this.
I think that's. Understanding. Each, R1 is the only limitation that we have. It's like that, where your feet and such.
Yeah, so right now, the way it reads, it says if you're R2, you have to follow R1s. I mean, that's how it reads, I mean, that's how it's reading to me, that's how I'm interpreting.
Yeah, no, that's not the case.
I need to reword it.
Yeah, if
So it's clear.
it's pointing to perhaps square footage on the lot side, it's different things like that, it's not, not that specific, not that specific.
Well, yeah, that's another area, I can see all that.
You envision fee restriction, you sell these lots, you envision these restrictions.
The board's, we're checking that now, that's absolutely, because we're not sure if we want 100% of these new ones to go that way, we may limit it to some percentage. But of course, we expect to handle that internally.
So if you're a non-conforming use, that you are somewhat grandfathered in, so long as the use doesn't change, the characteristics of it doesn't change, or changing some of it from the land proposal here. If you bring in some covenants restrictions, or if you say that you're putting a deed restriction on these transactions, I suspect that people have heard it, and they probably won't be suggesting a rezoning or a fortune rezoning on you guys.
Well, I asked the question, could you force us to rezone if you wanted to, after we've been here this long, doing what we do with this precedence?
Good question. I think anything could be non-conforming uses, which you are generally grandfathered in, but there's always room for interpretation. By changing these circular lots to these rectangular lots, does that change something that would expose you to rezoning? Your common elements, I don't know if that goes into it or not. I'm spitballing right now, Bob, because I haven't done legal research on this whole cases and see where we're at on it. But I think their comfort level would be, is the historical conduct going to continue, and no one is going to be that outlier that buys their property, and it's not only a pain for you, but a pain for them in 5 years. But if the deed restrictions on those conveyances and say, listen, you buy this property as single family, if you want to, but you know, this or R2, but this is what you can't do. That would comfort these folks, and then they could have some restrictions in place.
Well, and I asked if that's what you're saying, we are definitely rewriting our covenants to be stronger and more restricted, and definitely our rules and regulations, which we don't have a big problem with now. We just are anticipating that we could have more problems. So we're going to tighten them up right now.
What attorney?
Rick Rollins, again, is just agreed to take us on for all of our governing documents. We use Sarah Lip all through this process of converting the timeshares into privates. You know, it's a crazy thing, and I'm sure you're aware of. It has to do with, you know, Missouri nonprofit law. It has to do with the governing documents, with the village, of course.
So you're not supposed to have any assets. You're not a 501c3, so you don't have to look for another charitable nonprofit.
Correct, we're a Missouri nonprofit.
Yeah.
Not a federal nonprofit.
Right.
It's no, we're not disposing of any assets. You know, we're selling common land around, you know, if we could do it, around the village itself, sorry, around the flat itself.
When you say put some deed restrictions in, can you be specific of like that?
So when these individualized ownership interests are consolidated into one, they sell it to a single owner, for example, this gentleman buys it, that conveyance can bring with it some deed restrictions that say you can buy this home, it is zoned for this particular purpose. However, you can't have clotheslines in the backyard or something like that. So it's akin to it's akin to covenants restrictions, but it's not an overarching comprehensive group of rules, and so rules specifically with this be for example, if they have a water runoff issue and somebody at Smart Kids tried to put a culvert or some riprap or something down there, they can put a deed restriction that says you cannot change the characteristics of this waterway because we deem it to be necessary or something like that. So,
But it seems everything you're saying is already covered in our governing documents, which will get even stronger, because today you can't do anything to the exterior of your house. Which includes change the paint color or any addition to it, or anything to the grounds without approval from the board.
and then we're talking about it not be changed, the covenant restrictions can be, deed restrictions can be released, and your rezoning can happen. So none of what we're talking about is concrete. So,
Good.
what he's asking to do today is not gonna battle anything. From what I can tell, he needs to meet the lot restrictions, lot mandates, 10,890 square feet. I think the state will pay if you were to go that route.
I have a question.
It's BR2.
Say that, you know, the way you divide that in one, instead of not being that size, can we do a special use permit? Because they have,
I mean,
one slot is not gonna make it because all the
Well, I
other
think there's
things.
actually another committee that can give you a, what is it called?
variance.
A
So
variance,
if-
yes.
If
Thank you.
If Curtis, for example, came in and said, we want to do R2s, and then later on, he found it more profitable to sell his R1s, he could come in and convert that. What Bob is telling us, from what I'm gathering, is he's done his market research, and he thinks he has potential buyers that will buy it even at R2, and know that they can have noisy neighbors next door, and they're still gonna buy these places. So,
But a variance would be
yes.
to override the size of that particular lot.
Can I make a comment real quick? I think what I heard Bob saying, and just from a developer's perspective, I wanna make sure that you guys hear what he's asking the way I hear it. Is he's looking for confirmation from you, because it's like Mr. Miller said, anything can be litigated, right? And he's asking for guidance from you to say, you know what, you're not gonna come and change zoning against my will. That's what he's asking for from you, and so I would tell you from like a developer's perspective, if you guys answered him tonight and said, well, we might. I would really be thinking twice about doing any more developing in the village if that's, you know, so that's what he's looking for. He's just wanting to make sure you're not gonna
From
come and
past
try to
history,
force him into anything.
from past history, people have come to us to ask for rezoning. We don't go out to people and tell them they have to rezone. Other than when it first started out, we didn't know anything about it.
It's not under the
Okay.
mandate, the topic, but
Okay.
it's unusual.
So,
If some, excuse me, one more. If somebody wanted to, Bob, take one of these treetops and then, so it's R2. If it remains R2 and whatever else, and they individually own this lot, boom, boom, right there, whatever. Can they break that up, tear that place down and build a duplex? Or townhome? I know we talked a lot about duplex. So let's get rid of the duplex story. So let's talk about townhomes. Can they do that? I guess. I mean,
Well, that would all be covered by our governing documents,
Right,
we have
right.
covenants, and we have no intention to change the nature, you know, we've got a cozy little reputation going, everybody loves those unique octagonal units. We have no intention of changing that, I don't want to tear those down and build duplexes. I don't, as a private owner with my investment there, and that conversation has never come up once. We want to keep Treetop the pristine little private community that it's always been. We're just happy to get hold of this future, maybe $6 million, and so we can make it more beautiful and have our swimming pools and roads and sewers better. But no, we don't want to change Treetop Village. We want to keep this.
So since you're wanting to continue doing short terms, a lot of people there, your R2, which allows short term. Basically, you would not be changing anything until you would do, if we say, okay, your R2 allows for, short-term rentals. Even though you got into individual lots where they own more of the land. That's the way it's been for years and years and years.
Almost a half a century.
And I mean, I haven't noticed, I've never heard of any issues with treetop being the way, even though it's timeshare before, but being rented. I've never heard any issues, and I don't know if their law enforcement has had any extreme issues with people in treetop getting calls there. But I've never heard, I don't know if you guys have ever heard any issues with,
Wild, great guitar about.
yeah,
I
or,
get more water's edge.
yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, that's different.
Unless
So,
there's something else coming that's there that I don't, don't see or not to see the coming. I mean,
so the request, again, they're back to Bob's thing. There's two different things, it's talking about, it's the First Amendment, whatever else.
So we're okay with
But the zoning, it stays as,
Yeah,
we're talking about
it's
stays as it is. You know, he's probably looking for some, from a little bit of holy water, says, or is it going to stay this
and
way?
would there
Because-
be any reason why we would come back, and the trustee would come back and say, oh, no.
It sounds like he's got everything under control and we're overcomplicating what he's asking
I
for.
don't think they have the intention short term, Bob. I guess my response, the reasonable response would be, these 5 people now here in 10 years, so that needs to be further.
Well, that's true too, we all know things can change.
Yeah, if it does get rowdy over there in the next 5 to 10 years, the next 5 people, it's sure may have thought.
And they probably should.
And the only
If
reason,
it goes the wrong way, then you have that power.
and the only reason why I brought the R2 thing up was because my interpretation of reading that ordinance was that you couldn't have the rent, that's the only reason why I brought that up.
It's specifically expressed in the R1, it's not in the R2, and the R2 never works, I remember when it's pushed back to R1, so other characters.
Yeah.
Okay, and Ms. Miller brings up a good point, that if you do have the power to make us change, then you could do that at any point down the road if we suddenly spun out of control. At this point, I can promise you, we're gonna keep it like it is, under my watch.
I was gonna say, as long as you're.
Under my watch.
Do you have any more questions for Bob? Okay.
Yeah.
I suggest that, we make a motion to approve the 5 First Amendment one and, leave this community at R2.
It's two different, is that two different setups that needs to be addressed, Mr. Counselor, is that two different things? It was kind of presented
Two different.
as two different ones.
You only ask you to do one thing, is ask passively for some confidence that you won't come after the result.
True.
So I would take up the
amendment.
I would take up the subdivision, I guess, is what you could call it, the subdividing.
Right.
Those 5 lots.
And I would leave the other one.
Just leave the other one alone.
Leave that alone.
Right now, I guess it's trustee, but so you guys say we're not gonna
Well,
plan on changing
If
our.
I was Bob, I want to live more than just leave it alone.
If even if you put it in your minutes, that you're confirming that you have no intention to rezone Treetop Village, leave it as it's been for 48 years. That's all I want to be able to tell the future buyers and the future, the current owners.
And I mean, if I was you, I'd want more than just leave it alone from us. And I think that if something else in the minutes, that's a decision that we make. And it shouldn't really, to me, be a motion. If we'll make a decision to say, leave it alone, that should be documented in the minutes, and we agree to that as a motion, so if ever comes
So I'm gonna
back.
set this up in two
we
different
can do
things.
two different things.
First thing, okay, I'll make a motion that these 5 lots that we approve those as Treetops Village has it set up, drawn. And that we can sign off on this amendment 1.
And I would second that.
Okay, motion made, second, any further discussion on that? All in favor? Motion passed. Okay,
And sir, I would say, you know, I like the way you just said this. I would also request, other than the minutes, just a letter from you, if you pass it, just saying, we have no intent to rezone.
I think we're gonna go deeper than that.
the motion will be deeper than.
Okay, very good.
So, do we have a motion to keep R2 status?
I'm gonna question what they say, R2.
Okay. we have a
I'll second that.
Any other discussion?
What I'm hearing you say
Amendment 1.
is that you're making a motion that this body at this time,
At this time,
not taking into account or take into action any efforts to try to rezone treetops.
And keeping it R2.
Well.
because it's already.
Yeah.
Cause isn't it,
But you're not trying to bind successors,
Good.
interest, and people that might consider your chairs in the future.
So
That's difficult to. That's difficult.
I think at this time, what you just said is very important, so that we agree for this to say R2 at this time, that is simple, we can say. But we need to add this other.
I don't think they can go any further than that, I really don't. I don't think they can find their successors at this spot. We have to make an interview in this community and somebody sits on that panel at Haines Street House. I don't think they can be bound by the action of this panel. That's just my thoughts.
And you guys have a road.
Okay, so
Oh, I'm sorry.
the motion, who made the motion?
Well, Luann made the
Second
motion,
motion, yeah, I made the second motion for the amendment one to keep it R2 and
At this
as,
time.
and this time, based on the score.
Curtis, you guys, correct. I don't think there's ever been a perpetuity rezoning that happens. I think anything can be
Right.
rezoned.
but so with that same thing said, Todd, why couldn't, I mean, that would be whatever this board agrees upon with whatever we agree upon. Whatever we talked about with Curtis and everything before, anybody can come up later, can't they, and say, oh, well, that board back in 2025, I mean, that was 50 years ago, I
I
mean.
would think economically it's infeasible to make that many changes that quickly, but yeah, I mean, 30 years from now, 40 years from now, with 5 different people sitting here, maybe
They can
just
still,
the setup.
wow,
I don't think you can make it into perpetuity or make it permanent rezoning or zoning.
well, then nothing we
Yeah.
talked about
If you
is.
hire
is in perpetuity.
they come in with a
I mean,
different.
those words.
So are we clear on what Luann said at this time?
At this time, keep it R2.
Well, I'm clear, I'm not exactly sure how it's gonna
Well,
get, how it's gonna get.
I saw recording.
I'm looking at her going, are you okay? All right, can we get a second on that second motion?
I did.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, all in favor? Thank you very good. Hey, thanks for taking the time to come in and you did, you guys good job and get the job.
I'm open for any questions at any time. I'll be down here in 3 minutes.
Thank you. Okay, general discussion, anybody have any general discussion? Yeah, next is city attorney update.
We had a call on several things.
The audit is done, been submitted to the state, and then the SENA status, we're still working on that.
What comment? You've heard.
I see none.
Anybody else? Or anything else? Donnie, we good?
Yeah.
Okay, date of next meeting is August 13th, here at 5:30, we need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion to adjourn at
That's
7:31.
all in favor? Aye. Thanks, everybody.
All right, thank you.
No.
Thank you. Thank
You can have it, I brought it in, you should let me sell it.